Can you describe the process of selecting the winners for your call for scores? Do you read through all of them and have to narrow down the pool first, et cetera, things like that?
Depends on the year.
Depends on the year a little bit.
Year,
I think generally it's a process of on our own we each give everything a first pass and narrow down. And I think what we've found out is we're generally on the same wavelength. I think roughly speaking, the last call we did, we narrowed it down to maybe 10 each.
From how many?
I think it was right around 40 pieces in the last call.
Okay.
And so we narrowed it down to each our own list of 10, and I think there was probably a solid 8 pieces that showed up on each of our lists. And then we'll get in the same room and really look through the scores, and if there's if the composer sent recordings along with them, then we'll kind of go through all that together and try to narrow it down to a shorter list, maybe 5 or so. I think the hardest part for us is actually which one is the actual winner. Often, because the pieces are often so different. It's you're comparing apples to oranges, and
sure,
they come from very different places, and they might each have a very different intent, and so slapping the seal of approval on just one of them is actually kind of a bummer sometimes, because at the end of the day you have to do that, but
sure.
But that's our general process, and then after that once we get it down to that, then we'll get in the same room, and depending on which call it's been, sometimes we've gotten in the same room and actually played through them, and sometimes we don't. It's.
I was going to ask if you have to narrow it down further by actually playing through the piece and worrying a little bit more about the.
No, because I think that somewhere along the way we kind of decided the playability factor for us is not as much of a consideration as it's we don't necessarily want to let that enter into our decision. How comfortable are we playing through this piece? Let's put it through that litmus test. It's how much do we like the piece itself, and then then we'll figure out what we need to do to make it happen, I think.
Sure. Have you ever had any? You say you're normally on the same wavelength. Have you ever had a big disagreement about the call for scores and what you guys like?
All of us kind of did all of our post undergrad at different areas of the country with different teachers. So then when we sit down, we're all very open-minded, and we realize that we can learn a lot from each other, and sometimes I might not like a piece, but then, Brian will say, well, if you thought about it like this, and I'm like, no, I get that. Oh, I like this now, So it's cool. There's no drop down, drag outs, no arm wrestling, There might be a bottle of wine involved, when we're hanging out, but yeah.
As there always should be, right? It seems kind of natural to me.
The one we just did last year, I think, I don't think we had a consensus about the winner.
Yeah.
And then, but then we talked about it, and there's some various considerations there too, because with the tap space angle, it's actually great because those guys, they don't enter the process at all.
Yeah.
They trust us.
It's pretty wild. They, literally say, just, let us know who wins. And that's an interesting situation, because
that's surprising to me, actually, because if they're stamping their name on that, you'd think that they would want to. That does say something about the level of trust that they have in you as a quartet to say.
We have a good relationship.
Yeah, no, that's great. nienteForte is celebrating its landmark 10th season, sponsored by the National Performance Network. You can join us in championing contemporary music in New Orleans with a tax-deductible donation. Donating can get you some great perks, including early access to these roundtables, signed posters and programs from our featured performers, signed music scores from our featured composers, and even custom handwritten miniature compositions from composers in the nienteForte community. For more information, go to nienteForte.com/donate.